Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Terrible Podcast. Today's quote is from the Tao Te Ching, and it's verse number 29. Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it can be done. The world is sacred. It can't be improved. If you tamper with it, you will ruin it. If you treat it like an object, you will lose it. There's a time for being ahead, a time for being behind, a time for being in motion, a time for being at rest, a time for being vigorous, a time for being exhausted, a time for being safe, a time for being in danger. The master sees things as they are without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle. And again, that's verse number 29 from the Tao Te Ching.
Okay, that's a long one. First things first though. You said the first line. What was the first line of that?
Do you want to improve the world? I don't think it could be done.
So, and then you like pause, and I was like, like I think that's it. That's the powerful quote of the day.
It actually, you're right though. You could just take that first part of the quote, and that is really the quote, and the rest kind of just expands on it to.
Right. And and I'm going to relate this back to like even like human beings. I feel like there's this idea, like self-improvement. Like that is such a big, I feel like kind of buzz phrase right now, and it has been. And it's one of those like, but what do you exactly think you need to improve? Like it's one of, just like that quote says, like you're kind of perfect the way that you are. And if you're trying to get something to happen, there's times when it should happen, and there's times it's not going to happen, and there's times where you're going to have tons of energy and you're going to be like, holy shit, how am I getting all this stuff done? And there are times where you're going to be like, I'm so exhausted, I can barely get out of bed. And there's going to be times where you're super happy, and there's going to be times when you're super sad. And it's one of those, for me, looking at like those self-improvement type of things, it's like, what exactly are you trying to, what do you feel like needs improvement? And I think that maybe we can improve, but there's also an acceptance of like, look, I'm perfect just the way I am.
Yeah. I think the motivation behind why you want to change is what's important to
Mm-hmm.
grasp a hold of. And yeah, it is good. I mean, people, it's good to want to improve yourself, I guess, in my opinion, I'll say. But you're right, you should accept yourself for the way you are and learn to love yourself how you are. And then from there, um, look to be a better person, because if you try to
I just
change
feel
who
like
you
the,
are.
the word improvement makes it seem like you're not perfectly yourself.
Yeah.
Like
It's the
somehow you're
words.
broken and need to be fixed. Like, and even if you had some kind of um addiction or something like that, let's say you were addicted to alcohol or something like at the same time, I don't know if you necessarily need self-improvement. I think it's like, why am I here where I am right now? Why do I feel like I need this? How did this start? And that's not saying you're imperfect. There's such a perfection in kind of that observation and that recognition of those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the words that we use screw us up, because I feel it's really just about behaviors, and it's just about small little changes in it. It's really just about when I feel, my opinion, it's about when a person on their own, comes to the realization that they're sick of their own behavior. So if someone's drinking a bunch, it's okay, it's fine, it's what they have to do. And then if they're looking for help, um it's funny because I was just having I think it's good to help them or to reach out, but I was just having this conversation with somebody, and we were talking about this similar thing. And there's really the underlying problems, because people think that they can cure their alcoholism, and then they get addicted to something else. They might get addicted to the gym, and then they're like at the gym all the time, 24 hours a day, and then they want to like take steroids, and it's like, wait a minute.
Well, then there's
So
that like I didn't work out today. I need to do something. And it's like, chill out. Like it'll be fine, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I think that's more about being okay, like you said, with yourself, and it comes back to the acceptance of yourself and accepting the world the way it is also, and accepting yourself the way you are. And then you could, from there, if you want to make yourself better, then you could do that. I'll say, if you feel like you want to improve yourself or improve your behaviors or whatever, then you can make the choice on your own. It's not like an external thing.
Love that. And I think what a great now way of segueing into what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Because I love that we're both like, we're not perfect, but you know what? This podcast is perfect for us.
Yeah, you're pretty perfect. Why don't you talk about what you're doing right now with your business? You should shout out your business when people are listening at the beginning of this.
Yes. So I started my own social media management business. So basically what I do is take people that either feel like they have no time to focus on that or really are kind of lost as to how to utilize social media for their own business, and help them create like a strategy. And basically I do all of the heavy lifting, allowing them to just kind of do what they want to do, whether it be like, coaching or any kind of fitness related thing or nutrition or classes and workshops. I think a lot of times that can feel very draining because you're like, I don't even know what to do, and I feel like I'm drowning. I'm like lighting the candle at both ends. So hopefully I'll alleviate some of that stress. Obviously, like I said, I'm hoping that this will be a great way for me to help people. And also educate people and give me the flexibility to kind of go and work wherever I want. So you can check me out on my Instagram. It's aptly unique, APTLYUNIQUE. And I'm posting pretty consistently up there. And I also do have a Facebook page. You can check me out there, or you can just honestly go on my own personal Instagram, which we always tag on our terrible stories and posts.
The worst.
So today we are talking about the seven of wands. And we're going to look at the 7 of wands in the Rider-Waite, 7 of wands in the Thoth deck. And big news, we actually have now been starting to kind of reach out to potentially include guests on our podcast. So I'm really excited that hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can get some people to come on here, people that like the tarot, people that do tarot readings, get a little bit more background and insight. I think it's really interesting. It just sounds like such a perfect idea to have these now potentially 3 different perspectives, because when you go and you get a tarot reading, it's not going to be the same every single time, right? And it shouldn't be. It's all dependent on the person reading and your situation, and things change. So I really love that idea. So stay tuned for that. We have a lot of things kind of starting to come up here too, and blossoming. So we'll keep you all posted as those happen. I'm just really excited about this guest idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I transformed the Patreon page that I had to the Terrible Patreon page. So if you guys would like to support us, there's a couple different tier levels. It's very exciting because so just so you guys know, we record all these early. So we're going to make these available for people who support us. So for as little as $3 a month, you could support us. $3 a month. You can help support the show, and you will get videos and audio podcasts earlier, up to a week earlier than we release them. And then also extra stuff we're going to do and just put on Patreon only. And then we also have a couple other levels you could check out. We're also starting our own private chat. Basically, it's like a Telegram. There it is, a Telegram, kind of like a chat room. So you can go in there and share pictures and talk to us. And, we could share cards of the day in there and different inspirational stuff to keep each other going throughout the day. So check that stuff out. It's all at Patreon. Or you could, anywhere you're listening to this, I'm going to put the link to our Patreon under there, but you can just go to patreon.com and then search Terrible and it'll come up, or just email me. Anyway, yeah.
All right. So
let's do it.
Yeah, we're going to jump in here like we normally do. So for this part of the podcast, I give a description of the card. We give our initial thoughts of what the card looks like and kind of what it kind of springs into our mind of what we think it is. And then we'll talk about different aspects and then how it applies to different types of readings. And if you are new to tarot, whenever I do a tarot card reading, I normally like to I ask normally what kind of focus they want to have. Just because a card comes up in your reading, it could be interpreted a few different ways based on what you want your focus to be. So we delve into 3 different types of reading: a general reading, a love or relationship focused reading, and then a career focused reading. But obviously it can be tailored to whatever it is that you're looking for. All right, so we're looking today at the 7 of Wands. You have this blue background. It's the light blue we've seen in the 5 and 6 of Wands. And in the center, you have this figure. He has like orangey tights, this green tunic, and these long yellow sleeves underneath the green tunic. He's holding one wand in both hands, and it's kind of at a diagonal going from looking at the card top left down to the bottom right. He's standing on this ground that looks uneven, rocky, but it has some green covering, and there's a little like water stream. And then in the front of the card, you see the additional 6 wands that are kind of growing up from the bottom. If you want to check it out, we always post the card we're looking at each week on our Instagram at Tarotbull2, TAROTBULL, and the number 2. Or you can check out our Facebook page, which is the Tarotbull Podcast, and it will also be posted on there. Okay, so Brandon, initial thoughts.
Let's see. Initially, this really reminds me, you know what? Hang on one second. I'm just gonna. All right. So before I give my thoughts, I'm just gonna share my screen.
Hold on.
All right. So before we get into how I feel, because I actually love this card, I'm gonna show it on the screen right now for everybody. And again, this is the 7 of Wands. So going back to the 5 and the 6 of Wands, now when I look at the 7, the 5 and 6 make a little more sense, because kind of like I was saying with the 5, they're playing around a little bit, they're getting serious. Then with the 6, this guy kind of rides into town. Mm-hmm. He's the serious business. So he was, like we were saying, I was saying how he's the next recruit. So yep. He's all, you know, he's like ready to go. So this is him now, or that person, or even you or me. Now we're at 7, which is the number of perfection. So we're out there in the world standing our ground, and we're using our stick to fight off the other ones. And it seems like he's in a precarious spot. Like his face, him, you know, he or she, this figure's face looks very, like kind of like worried maybe, or a little, you know, like, kind of like worried like something might go wrong or whatever. So what I'm thinking though is, right now though, he's really standing his ground and he's establishing himself. So if you think of himself like as an adult, he's coming into his own now. He's found his own piece of land and he's sticking it out. And it could be like, you know, real physical land, or it could be just like an idea set of ideals, or even like a career or whatever. But mm-hmm. he's making a name for himself, and so it seems to him like it's hard work and these are the tough times. But these are the times you look back on. It's like when I was in the Marine Corps, you know, I always talked about how it sucked when I was in there, but now looking back, I had a lot of good times with people and hanging out and stuff and going places and visiting. But at the time, I didn't really view it that way. So, you know, it's like that. That's why I always tell people, if you think you're in the thick of it, like this character seems like he's in the thick of it, then, you know, enjoy it, because you're going to look back on it and, yep. you know, you're probably going to be like, those were the good old days.
And so I'm looking at this card and I feel like there's such this like feeling of I can do anything. To me, he looks almost like a giant, kind of like a giant, where he's fighting off maybe like townspeople or something like that. But you see, like the ground he's standing on looks like it would be like mountains and a river and maybe like a cliff. And he's so big, and it gives me this idea of being able to conquer anything, maybe being able to ward anything off. Like you have the ability to do this.
Yeah. And I love that you said something about mountains, because it reminds me of how I always talk about, a lot of times we see mountains in the background of the cards. And I always talk about how that can represent challenges that a person's been through or challenges that they have to go through. So these are the actual challenges that you're going through. This represents the tough times, like I was saying, but you know, they're only going to lead to good times. It's like a cycle.
Okay, so let's get into the different aspects of the card. Let's start off like I normally like to do with the background. So you see this blue background, but then you also see the blue in the river. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I always like to think of the as above, so below. And you think of like the Bible, how it talks about the waters above, how the sky is just like a firmament. There's waters above, etheric waters.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like he has that at his back. And he has 1 foot where he's standing in the water, 1 foot where he's standing on the land. So it's just showing a really good balance to me. That's kind of what I see. So even though he is in a struggle and in a fight, he's doing it in a righteous manner. And that's symbolized by that nice blue sky and the nice flat blue water. There's no waves, you know, it's just a nice little stream that's going through, no rapids or anything, no clouds in the sky. So what'd you think?
I did not even realize the idea of the foot being on the water and then the other foot being on the land. I love that because I feel like then there's this balance of like the emotional perspective of a situation plus the logical perspective of the situation. But I also feel like he's like enveloped by the blue sky around him, which gives me that like passion. Because when I say emotions, it doesn't always have to be sad. I feel like when people are like, you're emotional, it's like, yeah, I am. I have fucking feelings. Good, bad. Like that's everyone does. And why would you suppress those? It doesn't always mean like I'm like maudlin, like, woe is me. Like I love that there's the blue here because that makes it seem like the motivation and that push to kind of overcome things. And that's a great motivator. You know, when you're really passionate about something, I'm going to use myself as an example because I can be like a self-centered asshole sometimes, but like I'm very passionate about the business I'm trying to start. And so like I work on things for it pretty much all day, every day in the time that I have. But the time goes by so fast and I'm so excited about the idea and the perspective of like I could do this and it could become all of these things. So I just want to keep pushing myself to do more and learn more things. Like I was so excited yesterday when we were working on that website, and had it not been for the laborious rest of the day I had to have cleaning this house, like I would have spent all day long doing that, you know. And it's like that passion is what fuels me, and it's kind of like this never ending fire for now.
Yeah, I think that's important to grab it while you have it, and also to remember, you know, anytime we're doing things we don't want to do, because I have to do a lot of things I don't want to do. Also, I don't want to talk about it on stream though. No, I'm just kidding. But no, we all do things we don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there goes the vacuum again. There's a vacuum over my head, everybody. But it's like a cycle, you know. So you get to create the website and work in the morning, and then you have to do all that crap at night. But then you're able to do other stuff. And when you get in a space where you're able to just do whatever you want all the time, or most of the time anyway, you know, you'll be better off. But you're
Mm-hmm.
going to look back on these times like, oh, remember when I was building that website, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, you know, that's just, it seems just for anything, you know, I feel like I lost a lot of passion and drive at the end of working at the museum. And then it's like you could see that the time seemed to drag on and there was no like I can overcome this. And I love setting goals, and everything has obstacles, and maybe it's that my athletic past of like, you know, I was never like this person's going to beat me, because I didn't really care about that. It was like one of those like I knew I was going to win. And when you have that perspective, nobody can beat you, you know. So that's the initial feeling I'm getting from the card. And I feel like that blue kind of, maybe that's also how I feel right now. There's just blue enveloping me. I also love the word enveloping. Okay, I'm sorry.
I would say enveloping. The blue is enveloping. It's funny how you interpret it as that. You'll say emotional and people think sad, because I transmute a lot into humor and I laugh at a lot of things, even if it's horror, but nobody ever calls me emotional. But I am expressing my emotion just as laughter. Maybe
Right.
but sometimes they might take it the wrong way. Like, cause I feel like when you laugh at something, people think you're being derogatory. It's like, no, I'm just laughing at the sheer craziness of it. Cause that
Or
at
there's
some
the flip
level,
side of like, you're laughing because you're trying to cover up the fact that you're so sad. Or I'm laughing because I think it's stupid. Like
that, and also if you think of what sadness is, despair is just, if you think of it the way that Buddha said it, it's just when you don't accept what's going on. Like, refusal to accept reality is where despair begins, and that's where sadness begins. So it's like, no, I accept it, and I just think it's ridiculous and hilarious, so I'm laughing at it. Yeah, even if it involves horrible things like death, it's still anyway. But
even on another note, when someone's emotional, they could also be like very angry.
yeah, for sure.
There's this, or you're emotional, but they could also be very jealous. Why are we always like, why does emotional always have to have this negative connotation? It can be a whole bunch of things.
I think a lot. I think a lot has to do with it. A lot of it, in my opinion, is it's like, because if somebody's expressing discontent at the way things are, everyone's just kind of like, shut up and just go along with it, and it's kind of like you are digging at the truth of what's wrong with their existence too, but they'd rather just engage in escapism. And again, these sound like judgments. I'm just, if I could just break it apart, but anyway.
Well, I think what's important to note from what we can gather from this whole thing so far is that it's okay to be quote unquote emotional.
Yeah. To express it, I feel that's really where it is. Expressing it is the most important thing, instead of bottling it up. And sometimes like you were saying, anger, I was stuck in anger a lot. And sometimes I still get angry. Obviously, we all get angry, obviously. But now I feel that I could transmute it more, because I see the ridiculousness of the situation. And instead of frustrating me because I don't accept it, I accept it and then just laugh at it because it's just silly. I'm like, oh, I accept how silly this is. But yeah.
At the same time, like I said, it's okay to have those feelings. That's normal. I guess it's the way that you act on them, which could be considered potentially unhealthy.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
Move on to a different part now of the card. Let's look at the figure right in the center. What were your thoughts on him? We can talk about the colors of his clothes.
Well, like I said, the colors of his clothes. So
or whatever you want to say about him.
Well, I was just going to expand a little bit more on, hang on, I'm going to share the screen back, but I was going to expand a little bit on just the position he's in, and kind of like, because I think it's a good, it could be a good indicator to where somebody's at in their own life if they're struggling with a situation and this card comes up. You can use it to gauge your own situation. And like I said before, his feet are very, very firmly planted. So it looks like he's in a precarious situation, and he is close to the edge. Like you said, there's like a cliff or something there, but he's very firm. His clothes are very clean. He's got this nice green cloak on, so it seems like he's new at things. And then green is also the color of generation, of spring, of life. Everything's brand new. So it just goes back to that whole thing about growing and establishing your own, and whatever it is, your name in the world, or your piece of the world, your own little corner, your homestead, whatever it is that you want to establish.
I love what you said about his like stature, the way he's holding it. It reminds me of, remember in American Gladiators when they would hold like those
Turbo?
Yeah, or Storm.
The pugil sticks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Or it remind me of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Donatello had that one like whatever.
The bow staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I know
See,
all
you
the
guys talk
the lingo for this stuff. I'm killing it. Yeah.
but I love that you knew exactly what I was talking about.
Oh yeah.
But and it seems very defensive, but it
Mhm.
also seems like he's secure in knowing how to properly handle it.
Oh yeah.
I would
Yeah.
hold it and I'd be like, what's going on? Like how am I supposed to put my hands? And he looks like, no, I'm ready to like spring into action if necessary. Like this is my mountain. Stay away.
Yeah, there's like a lack of confidence in his face. That's what I was going to say. So there's like a lack of confidence showing in his face. Like he's a little worried about the situation. Maybe he like got into a situation where he feels like he's a little bit over his head. But that's how you learn. Sometimes you have to blow past boundaries to establish them. So sometimes you gotta, like in your case, you're a swimmer. Sometimes you gotta go a little crazy and maybe you're getting cramped and you feel like you're at the edge, but then for next
Mhm.
time.
So I see now when I look at his face and I feel like he almost looks like he's like kind of like teeth clenched, like almost doing a ugh kind of sound, like really getting angry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's such a great uh gauge of temperature for somebody, like a thermometer, to see where they're at, because you can look at this figure and then see how it feels to you, and you don't even have to share it with anybody. That's really what I like to stress about the tarot. This could just be used as a tool for yourself.
Mhm.
And then you could just say, hey, why, like for me, why do I feel like this guy's struggling? Then I could look at this for myself and where I'm at in my life, and I can expand on that. And then I also just noticed, wow, I don't know if you noticed this, but it looks like he has one boot and one shoe, and the boot is
Yes.
where the water is. And so it's like he knows, so he's prepared for the situation. He knows that he might get his feet wet over there,
Mhm.
but the other one, he has to have flexibility in his ankle to be able to work that other rough terrain. So he definitely is prepared for the situation. And that's, again, it's the little things in life, the details, that I feel if you can focus on, then not only will it help you excel and build a better foundation, but it will also take you into the present moment. Because if I wasn't in the present moment and looking at this card, if I was thinking about what I was going to say next, or about what I was going to say, when you're like, Brandon, so what do you think about in a relationship when this comes up? Like if I was thinking about that, because, I don't take notes. I'm not Ashley, like we've talked about this in other podcasts. Ashley is very prepared and she has specific notes and everything. And I go by the seat of my pants, because that's kind of how I read also. I'm in the moment. So everybody has their different ways of doing it. And that's why we work so well together. Because if I'm slipping up, I could just depend on her and make her go first. So, but since I'm in the situation, I'm in the present moment and I don't have notes about what I'm going to say. I could be worried about that, but no, see, I'm existing in the present moment and I'm looking at this card fully. And I noticed that he has that boot, and it looks like that can also give you sign of maybe confusion, but it's like a synchronicity. Like maybe he got dressed in the morning and he was rushed and he put one boot on and one shoe, but then it worked out. So
Mhm.
sometimes you make a mistake and it works out. So there's so many things you could,
I
you
love
know.
that. I didn't recognize that at all. And that's not
Mm.
something that my attention is drawn to, because my attention more goes like straight to him.
Yeah, I just noticed that now, right when I said it. I didn't notice it at all before, and I've seen this card many times. Yeah, it's just because it's so blown up right in my face.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the six wands. Um, what do you think that they are? I mean, obviously they're wands. I guess my question should be reworded to do you think they're being held by people? Do you think they're planted in the ground? Uh because you don't see the bottom of it. All you see is the top part of the wand. So we don't know actually where or how it's being held.
I think that they're not shown on purpose. This is another way. So the reason they show the face, so this way you can have your interpretation of it, and it's a human emotion you want to interpret, so it's pretty wide. And then they also want to leave what's holding those sticks up to the person's interpretation. So it could be other people, and then if that's how the person you're reading it for, if that's how you feel it is, then you can work on that. And there's other people in your life that you feel that are either helping you or holding you back or fighting with you. But then you could also be an obstacle. They could be stuck in the ground. Then it could be a natural obstacle that's in the way, something. There's so many ways to do it. It could also just be natural. They could just be sticks. and this guy's trying to break ground on some land and make it like blaze some territory for himself.
Yep.
So yeah.
I like the idea of them not being held by people. Because if they were, it would feel a little bit more like a battle to me.
Well, it's more like a internal battle this way. You can look at it this way where he's fighting himself really because a lot of people believe that, and it's really at the crux of many religions. There's not really an external enemy. You're really just battling yourself. It's all about the internal desires and stuff. So that's what that can represent too. Say if this guy's trying to overcome addiction or just become a better person, there could be desires that he has to fight with. Say it's food, and he's, there's certain times a day or night, and he's standing up and he's got to like hold it. Like I was just fasting for 7 days. Just during the day, I ate at night, so it wasn't like I was not eating for 7 days. But sun up from sundown, I wasn't eating. It was tough. That's kind of what it felt like for a while. I was battling, and I don't even eat that much during the day anyway. I usually eat at night, and it still was rough. So
I'm just like, but I think like the idea of it being people holding those wands, it seems more like fighting somebody else,
mhm.
as opposed to, I like the idea of if they're just like kind of these almost like trunks or branches that are kind of planted into the ground. Maybe he's trying to level it to kind of give him a place to build whatever he wants. Right? So the idea of like him tearing down his own walls or overcoming his own issues and what he sees as potential like obstacles and hurdles for himself.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into if this card came up in a general reading, what would you say?
Um, I think I would say that I would go back to that person in the middle and ask the person who's getting the reading, how they identify with this figure
Mhm.
in the middle of the card, and take it from there. So if they thought they were in a struggle, I would talk about what are the struggles that you think you're going through in
Yep.
your life, and then how can you pertain, because this person doesn't really look like he's struggling that much. He has the high ground, so if he was in a battle, he still be working hard, but it wouldn't really be a struggle. But unless you think there's multiple forces against him. But yeah, I think I would do that and take it from there. What about you?
I just say that if it came up, I would say again, it's like kind of that breaking down of barriers for yourself, or kind of knowing how to overcome obstacles. You're doing that so you can protect what is like your own truth. So you're saying like, I know what is true for me. I need to overcome XYZ. And then also it's like how to properly handle all of these things, maybe with a two different kind of footwear. And the tunic also allows for a lot of flexibility and kind of moving around, right? It's not this armor that's very stiff. And so and then maybe it's also like, yeah, I'm going to stay with what I just said, the overcoming obstacles in a positive way. Like you have the motivation and the passion to be able to do it, and you might feel overwhelmed at times. And I know uh, when the podcast comes out, it'll be a little bit after my cards of the week this week. But so funny is that I feel so connected to this card because a lot of the cards that I pulled seem very like related to that feeling. So maybe that's also where I'm coming from right now.
Mm, yeah.
All right. So let's say this comes up in a love reading. What would you say?
Well, first, I'm not going to ask you to go first on this one, like everybody might have thought, because I do have that power. Everybody, I get to ask her once. You go first. Well, twice if she'll never say no. I could always tell her to go first. But she's so nice. What I am going to say though is, I think if this came up in a for reading, like if somebody had a question about their love life or whatever, I could tell them that this really represents, I'll just pertain it to myself really, because in the situation that I'm at, I've overcame a lot in my life as far as intimacy issues with other people. So I feel like now I'm in a situation where I could find myself starting a relationship. However, the way that society is set up, I feel like a lot of people are just not aligning with a lot of with the same ideas that I have, I guess. So this would kind of be me testing those ideas and just standing my own ground and being myself in the world. And maybe I'll find what I think it's kind of like you really, and this advice, I mean, this could be advice for other people, not just myself, but it's like you never really know what's going to happen. And if you think you have an idea what's going to happen, the only thing is that idea is just going to get smashed, because even if it does happen, it's not going to happen how you think it's going to happen. Like when I was younger, when I used to go places, whenever I would imagine going somewhere, I would just try to build the whole place up in my imagination of what it was like. And I would just have this whole picture in my head, and then I would get there and it was nothing like that. Right. And
Mhm.
now that I think about it, it was probably just me trying to control the situation, saying, I know exactly what's going to happen. This is what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to be like. It'll be okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. Stuff like that. Because probably had a fear of the unknown, as a kid who, it's natural. It's not like I'm saying it's unnatural, but that was my way of dealing with it. So now I try to not do that as much. And I try to just take it as it comes. People are like, what is it going to be like? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to have to see what happens, because if I just worry and fret about it, if that doesn't happen, I still wasted all that time worrying and fretting. And then if it does, like I said, it'll be in a different way. And, it'll be something I'll have to deal with at the time. So I'll need a clear head. It'll be better for me to be in the moment anyway. So, and again, these are things I could tell myself over and over again. But when challenges, certain things arise in your life, and you do worry about the future. So again, I'm not perfect, and it happens to me as well, but these are the things that I try to strive to do. So anyway, that was a lot about love, but Ashley, what do you think?
But you know what I love that you just said, going off what you said about going
You
places,
love everything I just said because I'm awesome. No.
and having that perspective, I feel like you have certain ideas about how things are supposed to be at certain points in your life, right? As a kid, you're like, at this age, I'll be doing this, and at this age, I'll be doing that. And then, when you move into your own place, it's going to be like this. And if you get you buy a house, it's going to be like that. And if you get married and you have kids, and it's like, why are we? And then you do those things, and you're like, oh, it's not like any of that. I feel like I'm like that with situations, not necessarily with places. With places, I'm always like, I don't know what it's gonna be like.
Mm.
I don't know what it's gonna be like, and I'm just kind of like. But I feel like that gives you that childlike mentality of like that awe of like, whoa, you know. Um,
Yeah, that's the childlike quality that's good. And then the immaturity is where it falls behind, and the misconception and the false perception of that is where I feel people get tripped up, because like, I try to laugh at everything and take it as it comes and live in the moment. And I'm not saying it's a perfect way to be, I make mistakes, but what I'm saying is like people might see that behavior and be like, oh, he's acting like a kid, where it's like, oh yeah, but am I? But you're not even facing your own emotions, and you get hammered all the time. So who's acting like a kid? But then again, I'm just judging. But it's the same thing. It's like they're probably projecting because they're displaying immature behavior as well. So
yep.
it's like, oh
So for me, looking at this, I'm saying if this came up in a love reading, I like to do if somebody is single and then if they're in a relationship. I think
yes.
that if you're going to say, so if you're in a relationship, I'm going to go in a couple different directions here. Maybe this is a time of feeling very defensive. So maybe there's been a lot of arguments, or you feeling like you're being picked on, or the other person is like pressuring you, and these might not even be real things, but in your mind they're real, like you feel like those things are actually happening, so you feel like you have to be very defensive because you feel like you're being picked on. I think that happens a lot. uh I think what can happen at the beginning of a relationship, like when you start really spending a lot of time with each other and you're over that honeymoon period where it's like, I didn't realize you breathe like that. But it's like, whoa,
How
sorry
dare
for
you?
breathing. um, or it can happen, if you've been together for a long time, where it's like, remember when you used to do that? And so like, I feel like then you get put on the defensive. So if you're in a relationship, I would say that are you feeling that way? Or do you think your partner's feeling that way? If your partner's feeling that way, are you contributing to that? And I think a lot of times when people are like nitpicking or whatever, it's because they're really upset with the way things are in their own life. And they're like, well, I'm going to pick on this for another person because maybe that'll help me feel better about whatever it's making me upset. Um,
Yeah, kind of like really quickly, it's kind of like what I was saying, because the people will, instead of focusing on or expressing their own emotions or focusing on the problems that they have internally, they will highlight your own. And in the same way, though, they see themselves in you. So
mhm.
it goes back to like when I had low self-esteem issues and I kind of hated myself, I would see a quality in somebody else and I would be like, oh, I hate that they do that. But it was a behavior that on some level I was also displaying. So
Yep.
yes, and that's why I don't say this to judge. I say this so this is how I empathize with people, because if I could do this in my head instead of saying, oh, there's just a fucking idiot, so that's why I hate them because they're retarded, or I'll just say something, mean in my head and just hate them. I'm like, oh no, they're doing this because of that, and I did that, and then oh, I
Mhm.
get it. And it's a way to express my emotions too, and express everything and get it out, and then I can express it as empathy. And again, empathy. I've said this before, not on this show, but empathy. When you empathize with somebody, it doesn't mean that you consent. So you can have compassion for somebody and not consent to what they're doing. You could just kind of see their
Mhm.
point of view. And this goes back to what I've said in other episodes about the Bhagavad Gita, where they talk about even if you have to kill somebody, you still keep them in your heart. You still empathize with them. It's like, I get it. They're trying to defend their homeland, but I have to do whatever. It's a crazy war or whatever. They were grappled. It's still that thing
Mhm.
where you don't want to kill them because you hate them and you think they're a monster. Yeah, I know that's a little crazy, but that's what we offer here on the Terrible Podcast. Anyway, Ashley, back to your love
Well, and
potion
so then
card after I
on the
talked
flip
about
side,
killing people.
yeah. On the flip side, if you think it's not your partner, if you're feeling that way,
Mm,
there's a couple different perspectives there. One is the person you're with maybe being a little verbally or psychologically abusive in terms of constantly picking on you. In which case, let's turn that around, because you can't change that person. Why are you still with the person that's acting that way? One.
good
Second,
question.
second, if you're thinking like, oh, I'm feeling this way, and you evaluate the situation, you can be really really honest with yourself, which is hard for a lot of people, including myself. But it's like, if they're not being like that, why are you taking everything so sensitively? Why are you taking it where you constantly feel like you have to be on the defensive? you know did something happen either in your past or is currently happening now where you feel like you have to be like constantly on edge of like, no, I have to always be ready to defend myself? So I'd say that for a relationship. If you're single, I'd say that it's kind of looking at the idea of like pushing off any potential opportunity to connect with people. So maybe you are feeling either insecure, or you're having low self-esteem, or you're in a place where you're like, you know what, I don't want to have any type of connection with people. And you're pushing away any potential opportunities. That doesn't mean you're pushing away specific people. It's not like there's tens of hundreds of suitors outside and you're like, no, 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 no. But you're like, I'm not going to go out anywhere. I'm going
The good old days, right?
to exactly.
Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
But it's like, maybe it's like you're not going to put yourself in situations where you could encounter other people and meet people that have similar interests or like-minded. And then, but why? Are you scared of getting hurt? Are I'm not gonna lie, like, I obviously, like, I don't want to be hurt, but I also have a paranoia in my head of like, I've watched too many Datelines in 2020s, and I'm like, I know what happens when a single woman goes out somewhere with her car and then you find the car, but you never find the woman. Like, in my head, I have that paranoia, and it's like based on, I've never been, thankfully in a situation where I felt unsafe or anything like that. But, I still have that worry. And so in my head, it's like, maybe I'm just not ready for that. But anyway, I'm now I'm dissecting myself. But I'm saying, if you're single, looking at that, why do you feel like you need to put up walls, um, or be on the defensive or get yourself out of those situations? And there's nothing wrong with being alone. But I feel like that makes it like then you're lonely. No, not necessarily, you know. But if you are like, well, one day I would like to have, it's everyone wants to share things, their life with people, right? But if you're putting yourself outside of those situations, I would just say like, let's evaluate why. Anyway, long story short, that was like a very long-winded answer for a love reading for this card.
Yeah, everybody loves it though. You don't understand. I got like 3 compliments. I got another one today I didn't even tell you about. So don't worry. It's so funny. I get it. I understand because in the world of like communication, like if we were just talking, it would be
Mhm.
like, Jesus, Ashley, give me, not that, not them, but I'm just saying, like in your head, you're thinking to yourself, man. But on a podcast, it's great because people are driving, they're like chopping wood, they're planting flowers, I don't know, whatever they're doing. So yeah, it's great for them. But totally, I hear you. But yeah, no, I think what you said is great. And these times right now are pretty crazy because especially where you live, all these restrictions and people wearing masks and stuff. So it's very hard to connect with other people. So a lot of people are doing it online. And I feel that online, not that it's a bad thing, but again, you have to have that balance. So it is good to get out around people because when you're online, you don't always get a feel of people. You don't, well, I guess it just depends on the person you are, but it's because of body language and stuff like that. It's always good to be around other people to just get the sense of them and even to smell them, to get their pheromones and to just see if you're a match, if your chemistry matches and stuff
Well,
like that.
Brandon, I mean, how many seasons are there of the show Catfish? You're connecting with people online, but you don't really know who you're connecting with.
Yeah, that's always kind of the constant thing in the back too. But with social media these days, this is the thing. If you're listening, you have to be very honest with yourself. We always talk about this, but if you're conversing with somebody online and you aren't on, listen, these days, if somebody, I get it if you don't want to be on Facebook and be totally exclusive, but if they don't have like a good picture of a good amount of pictures of themselves with other people and like videos where you can prove that they're an actual person, I would be very, very careful. Anyone listening to this, because I have seen there's even fake bots that's like AI, like on Twitter that can respond. So just think of if somebody had some of those set in a couple pictures, they could just be conversing all day with people. Like you never know what's going on. They could just be trying to get you
Mhm.
financially, or they could just be trying to drain you spiritually because they need your energy for your attention.
Yes.
At the end of the day, anyway, so you're right. There's always those pitfalls. That's why I think it's good to get out and to get among people. And especially now we're coming to the spring, we're coming to the summer. Get out there, go for a hike, go for a walk,
Yes.
talk to people. This is how synchronicity happens. Go with your instincts, follow your gut.
All right. So now let's talk about if this card came up in a career reading.
All right, now you go first.
Okay. I'd say that if it came up in a career reading, I could see the specific careers being like sales or politics.
Yeah, I can see that.
um, but if you're not talking about a specific career focus, I would say that, do you feel like you're being kind of overwhelmed at your current job in terms of you're asked to do too many tasks with unrealistic expectations of execution? Or do you feel like you're being undervalued, where you feel like you're constantly kind of fighting for any kind of recognition, because you're not being actually seen? And I, you know, I haven't worked in many corporate America type jobs. I've worked primarily in nonprofits where you would like to think that it's a little bit more intimate and everyone has the same mindset, but that's not necessarily the case. But I think sometimes people in jobs, you don't become a person. You're just kind of a placeholder. And maybe that's what you're feeling at your job. And look, there's some people that are okay being placeholders, and that's fine.
What do you suggest then if somebody feels that way? What did you do? Because I know you kind of felt that way, Phil.
You know what? Honestly, like I can be honest and say that the best thing that happened to me was being let go, because I don't know if I ever would have taken that jump myself. Um, because I'm also a person that very much likes consistency and schedule and, you know, um, I again going back to what I was saying earlier, you subscribe to this mindset of like you make a decision based on what you're going to do with your life, like, well, I'm going to do this, but it's like, okay, and then you feel like you have to be, for lack of a better word, married to that idea. for the entirety of your working life. And why can't you go and try out to do a bunch of different things? Not saying like start something and leave after a few months, and there's people that are always chasing whatever, but if you're trying to do something that fulfills you, my biggest issue is the lack of my kind of want to do everything and know everything. So if you are feeling like how I was just saying, maybe it will take time. And I understand the amount of strength it takes to say, like, I don't want to be just a placeholder anymore. I couldn't do that. I was forced to come to that realization because I was let go, but saying like, what is really the most valuable thing in your life? If you really want to feel fulfilled by your job, I don't think being a placeholder is fulfilling, personally.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I feel like it goes back to our roots as humans, as how we existed before modern civilization, and even how we can exist now in modern civilization. That's the kind of the crux. I keep saying this, my new word today. That's the whole. That's it for me, right? Because for me, you can exist in the society, in this world, in harmony with nature, and still be fulfilled and do a bunch of things. You could do your own thing, especially with the internet, the way things are now. There really are no excuses, and you could still like have a garden, have a little homestead. You could sell things on the internet. You could exist in these ways. Raw milk right now is one of these things you could sell for like more than gold. So if you got like a cow or like a goat, you know what I mean? Like even a small cow, you could sell raw milk for like $30 a gallon probably. So I mean, there's just so many things you could do. It's just like you said, it's scary. It was the same thing for me. I had to take that jump. And I feel like when I came out of that when I was like working in a regular job and I went into the DJ business and in that world until like 2008. I feel that's what it was like for me. I was the same thing. I was laid off and I was kind of forced into it. So I had that struggle, and that struggle is definitely highlighted in this card because there's all these other people out there. And the wand is really how you create in the world, and it's how you
Mhm.
make your way. So there's all these other people, and you could look at those other wands as people doing it at a lower vibration, which is okay because that's their vibration that they're at, but they're just judging you and you're at the top of the hill. You're on the mountaintop, but you got it. Sometimes you do have to like defend yourself or justify it. And when I say justify, like you shouldn't have to justify your existence, but sometimes you have to make it make sense to other people who are important in your world to
Mhm.
gain respect, and you really have to show that you do, because that's the other side of the token. It's not like I'm saying, hey, just become an Instagram influencer and it's all lovely and then you can't support yourself. No, you have to find a way. You could do it with comedy. You could do it with making mugs. You could do it with like raw milk, like I said. But if you could find a way to sustain yourself,
Yep.
then that's you on the top of that mountain.
Yes. All right. So, I feel like we're good with this card.
Yes.
So now for the next part of the podcast, we look at the same card, but it's in a different deck. So we have it's a different image and we get different thoughts and feelings about it. Brandon normally gives us the description and then we give our initial thoughts.
All right. For this card, we're going to be going with the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. And we've talked about Aleister Crowley. Go back to other episodes. We talk about evil people and are they really evil, and motivations in artwork and expressions of creativity from the unconscious. And we also talk about how you could interpret those and where are you in your own life? Are you looking to interpret these to do good or evil or help yourself? All that stuff. So in the spirit of helping ourselves, we're looking at this piece of art. This is the Seven of Wands, and again, the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck. Very similar to the last card with the arrangement of the wands in the background, but this time there's 6 in the background, all intersecting each other, and there's flames coming out of each intersection of the wands this time. And then the one wand in the middle is more like a walking staff, or you'd think of like Gandalf in a wizard's staff. And then similar to also to the 6 of wands, at the top of the wands in the background, you see a lotus flower. On the outside ones, the middle one, you see phoenix head, and in the innermost, there's wings with the circle at the top, kind of like was at the top of the other wand in the Six of Wands. And the background of this card though is a purple with a little bit of pink, and I think that's about it. And I'm gonna, if you're listening to this, you can check out the video on my YouTube channel. It's Brandon Bonanza. There'll be a link under this, and just look for the Terrible video list, and it'll be right there. And you could watch this video where I'm streaming a picture of it right now. And if not, go to our Instagram at Terrible, TAROTBULL, and the number 2. Ashley, what'd you think of this card?
Okay, so first thing I like is the word valor. I just like that word. And I'm a little thrown off because, see, now if you've listened to our entire journey here on the Terrible podcast, you will probably recall, probably since the beginning, that Brandon has been telling me I need to watch Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And I just watched the first one the other night. And so you're like, oh, this looks like Gandalf's wand, or staff, sorry. But I look at it and I'm like, it's all like not straight. And I mean, it looks very organic. And that's what a tree branch looks like. But compared to the other 6, my eye goes to that, and to be honest, I aesthetically don't like it. It's just bothering me that it's right in the center, and it's like not. The other ones are so like straight and smooth, and maybe that's the idea of being unique, right? And being able to stand out as I'm like talking myself through it. But aesthetically, I just don't feel like I like the way it looks.
Well, what about this interpretation? The other wands are mental, and the one in the middle is on the physical realm. So to me, it kind of represents somebody getting all those other powers of creations, what wands can represent, especially 6 of them, aligned correctly mentally to then create that 7th wand and use it on the realm here in the physical realm. And of course, because it's on the physical realm, it's not going to be perfect, because it is perfect. That's the thing. It just doesn't look like the other ones, because again, it's not like the situations we imagine going into, like we imagine ourselves going to this perfect situation. Well, you can also use your imagination in a good way. And if you align it this way to help yourself and to create, it's going to create in the physical realm, and it's not going to look perfect to people's eyes. But again, to nature, like you said, it's perfect.
Okay. And I guess that it gives you that mental ability to know how to overcome obstacles and use that. Like, you need to, when I'm thinking about the word valor, I often think about like battle, or some kind of conflict or fight. And it is a mental game. Your mental perspective is so important, especially like I'm going back to like sports, but people always say like it's 40% physical, 60% mental, because your mind can talk yourself into or out of so many different things. And I love that idea.
You're bad, like you say, you're always battling yourself.
And I love that idea, but like I'm still gonna say the aesthetic of that in the center.
Well, that's good. That's your interpretation, and then obviously then you work with that,
But here's the thing, like I love the idea of it, and I can see where like I would probably interpret it as we're talking through it. And then, if you look at the purple of the background, you have the combination of the red and the blue, the feminine, the masculine. It seems really balanced and nice, and you have all of these tools to help you succeed. I think maybe it's the color of that center wand that's really throwing me off.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would like a little bit more organic looking, like a little bit more brown.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It feels to me like it's like illuminated, like it's coming to a part of illumination, and that could be because it's on fire. You think of like a that's what like a coal would look like if you ever had like a stick that was burning in the fire for a while, or a log.
Yes,
that's what they look like. So that could represent that too, because after you use it in the physical realm, then it's gone. So it's also showing the temporary of it, or the you know,
Oh, or going back to what I was saying about the Seven of Wands and the Rider Waite, maybe that fire is that passion, is the motivation. So you have all of these tools mentally prepared to kind of combat this obstacle, and then you have that fiery passion and motivation to really keep you going.
speaking of fiery passion and motivation to keep you going, everybody, it's Giz.
I
What's up?
know. She's like all day, all morning, she's been like, where are you going? I mean, you heard when the doorbell rang, she like freaked out. Like, oh, mom, are you leaving? It's okay. She just wants to be right next to me. Okay, well, I feel better having talked through it. I still don't like the color of that center one though, and I'm gonna stick with that. Okay, so next week we will be talking the Eight of Wands, and hopefully talking about who our first guest is gonna be.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be exciting.
Very exciting. So until then, you can listen to us every Tuesday, and we're on Spotify now, which I'm super excited about because I have Spotify. But I also listen to us on Apple Podcasts. And you can go on our website, terrible.com, or follow us on Instagram, terrible2, TROTBULL, the number 2. And if you want, you can also book a reading with us, either one of us, which would be really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yes, excuse me. Yes, you can. And the best way to find any of the ways that Ashley mentioned is our website. So go to terrible, TAROTBULL.com. And
Mhm.
at the top of the page, under where it says Terrible Podcast, there's all the different buttons for where you can watch us and listen to us. So you can even watch us on YouTube. That's right there. And the best part is that's the secret link to all our old podcasts. That's
Yeah.
the best way to find them, is right there. You'll see it. It'll say podcast audio, click on it, and you can listen to all the old ones. So go there, do that, and then also check out our Patreon, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, and follow us there so you can listen to our stuff as it comes out. And then also bonus episodes we just put on for exclusive patron ears.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, thank you guys for listening, and until next time, stay
Stay
terrible. Terrible.